So I just got back from my second trip to Fort Wayne, Indiana to visit the fine folks at Sweetwater Sound for their annual Gear Fest. Now, Gear Fest has been around a really long time, but this event has gone through some big changes in recent years. It's kind of like a gear trade show, think NAMM, combined with a networking event and a content creation party, all happening at the same time. Now, last year when I took this trip, much of how Sweetwater operates was very new to me. I'd never seen their massive campus or explored their recording studios, so that trip was in some ways kind of overwhelming as I was still wrapping my head around, how Sweetwater operates and just how massive the company actually is. But this time I came in not only knowing more people in the building, but also understanding a little bit more about how this specific event works and what Sweetwater expected of us as invited guests. So when we first arrived, we all made our way to the drum room. This space was the unofficial drum room last year, but there were a lot of other vendors mixed in. And this was an issue when you wanted to, try out a drum set or a cymbal, but there was someone 10 feet away trying to have a conversation about microphones. Well, this year, Casey Cooper and Wayne Davis spent several days setting up this massive room, which was entirely dedicated to drums. There were close to 20 complete drum sets in the room, and we had several different opportunities to record on all of these kits. I promise by the end of this video, you'll hear almost every kit that was in that room, and there were some gorgeous drum setups in there. Now, after the initial chaos had cleared, Casey set up his mobile recording rig and we moved all around the room to try out some of these incredible kits. The Pearl Masters Maple in this Shimmer of Oz finish was definitely one of the standout kits in the entire room. And while I didn't grab footage of the pedals on this kit, there was a Demon Drive XR double pedal on almost every Pearl kit in the room. And this was one of the first pedals that I've played in years that was so noticeably smooth that I had to look down to figure out what exactly I was playing. I normally don't look at the pedals on a kit. I don't really care. They all feel relatively similar to me. Unless it feels bad, I don't normally notice it. But these things were unreal. So if you're a metal player especially, and you're looking to upgrade a pedal, the Demon XR, this was super, super nice to play in person. Now this Tama Star kit was another favorite at GearFest. We kept calling it the 10K kit because it felt like it had to be at least $10,000. We had an absolute blast jamming on this thing, and dare I say that it featured some of the best sounding cymbals in the room. All right, so we'll definitely come back to the drum room. That was just our first lap as we got acclimated to all the gear there. But as GearFest continues, we all had scheduled appointments with different vendors around the Sweetwater campus. And of course, much like any trade show, this is your opportunity to learn about gear that you're interested in, network with different companies, and obviously ask any questions that you might have. Now, a few weeks before GearFest actually began, all of the creators were asked which companies that we were interested in speaking with. And then when we arrive, we get a custom schedule, meeting up with all of those individual companies. And this kind of organization is one of the things that sets GearFest apart from a more traditional trade show like NAMM being the best example. You aren't competing with thousands of people to get a word in with a vendor. If you want to speak with somebody from Sennheiser microphones, for example, you have a full hour scheduled with them at their booth. So it feels a little bit more relaxed and more casual because you aren't scrambling around aimlessly and screaming over other people just to ask a question. So at some point, Casey and I were scheduled together for an hour at the Evans booth where we got to try out the new sensory percussion system from Evans. I think Casey has actually already tried this system, but it was my first time ever seeing it in person. So this setup is effectively a set of triggers with a small module that includes a ton of unique sounds in the software. But what I found most interesting was the sensitivity of the triggers, because you can play almost any surface of the drum and get a different sound from the trigger. So the rim of the bass drum actually gives you a unique sound, the side of the floor tom, even different areas of the heads act like different zones. Even though there's only one trigger, you can just get so many sounds out of that single trigger depending on where you play the drum. So playing something that was so responsive, it ended up being really immersive. Like you'd sit down to play for a couple of minutes, and then 20 minutes later you realize like, whoa, I'm still playing this thing. Kind of like the first time you played an electronic kit, this thing just really sucked all of us in. It was a ton of fun. Now, at the end of our first day of GearFest, Casey and Wayne had organized a giant drummers night where we got to put all of these insane drum kits to use. There were tons of guitarists, bassists, keyboard players, sax players. It was just a giant open jam session with catered barbecue from Wayne and his wife. It was an absolute blast. At some point on the second day, David, Raouf, and I were scheduled at the Focal booth where we took a deep dive in their range of studio monitors. But these were all rigged up in Dolby Atmos, which is an insanely cool experience if you've never heard that audio configuration before. It's literally like you're swimming in sound. So we spent a good amount of time in that studio just soaking it in. It sounded incredible. Now, with so many creators walking around Sweetwater in the same week, ranging from photographers to DJs to singers to guitarists and obviously a lot of drummers, it's not uncommon that someone will approach you about working on a project that they have going on. So at some point, Dovidas grabbed me and asked if I would sit down for a few jams at the Crescendo Club, which is this small little stage that's right off the side of Sweetwater's cafeteria. And this was an interesting jam to say the least because we had absolutely zero prep, but it was a ton of fun and I always have a blast playing in front of a live audience. So after my improvised little mini concert here, I made my way back to the drum room for a group recording on the electronic kits. Now the Ludwig kit in the middle here was rigged up with Evan's new sensory percussion system, and we had a full Roland kit over on the far left. Then on the right, there were just a few smaller drum machines. This was a super fun jam. We all took turns jumping around these kits, and if you watch any of the other drummers' vlogs from this trip, you'll see a lot of cool different angles, mixes, and sounds of this particular jam. It was a lot of fun. After that, we circled around the drum room and did another quick session on these 3 kits. And you might have noticed the kit on the far right is comprised of, I think it was 7 snare drums and absolutely no toms. We all had kind of a love-hate relationship with this kit because it was really fun in some ways and absurdly annoying and frustrating in others.
Do you want to do more on that kit?
No.
Okay.
And there it is. That was my time at GearFest 2023. For me, it has been really interesting to watch this event develop and evolve over the last 2 years. As far as I'm familiar with, there's nothing in the music industry quite like this event. And I try to think about GearFest from Sweetwater's perspective, as they're the ones funding this whole thing. And for them, I think this is kind of a risky event to put on. For example, Sweetwater is not responsible for connecting YouTubers with different companies. If I want to work with Shure microphones or Universal Audio, for example, it's my job, it always has been my job, to reach out to those companies and connect with them. But through GearFest, Sweetwater creates this environment where we as creators can work directly with these companies. And in many cases, we can start up projects that might not even involve Sweetwater. And this is where I think Sweetwater is very wisely playing the long game. I have no doubt that this event is not profitable for Sweetwater. I don't see how it could be. 50 plus YouTubers aren't flying across the country just to buy gear, and all of the companies and vendors that show up, they're not there to sell us gear. Some of them tried, but I think they're kind of missing the point. This event is hosted as a breeding ground for new ideas and new connections between creators and the companies who make the gear that we all use. For Sweetwater to even show an interest in helping us make those connections is above and beyond what distributors have always been expected to do. So if you've ever wondered why Sweetwater as a company is as successful as they are, this kind of wide approach to the constantly changing music industry is one of many reasons that they've garnished so much respect from both creators and the companies who make our favorite gear. Anyone who's tried to make music content for the internet knows that there are many aspects of the music industry, and especially the drum industry, that will frustrate you. But by hosting events like GearFest, I think Sweetwater is genuinely helping to modernize and update parts of our industry that have been stale for a really long time. Once again, a massive thank you to everyone involved this year: Casey, Wayne, Tyler, Ryan, Josh, Chad, both Steves, anyone else I'm forgetting. You guys are awesome, and I'm so deeply appreciative of your time and effort this year. It was a total home run, and I had an absolute blast once again. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Adam here, and I will catch you all at GearFest 2024. Later.